Hello and welcome to Talk Truth. My name is Cory Huntsberger. I've got my father, Alan Huntsberger, in the studio. Dad, we're going to start off with our foundational verse like we always do. The earth and everything in it, the world and its inhabitants belong to the Lord. For he laid its foundation on the seas and established it on the rivers. Psalm 24, 1 and 2. We start that verse off because it's just centers. Because like we've got everyone, Alan, making a grab for the world and the resources and everything. The WEF, the World Economic Forum, the WHO. I like all these guys. And we're saying, wait. We're all on the same page because we believe the Lord created the earth. Everything in it belongs to Him because He's the creator. So let's start from there. Right,
including the inhabitants.
Yeah, in the inhabitants.
Yeah, the inhabitants, which means all of us, whether you're from North America, South America, or Asia, or wherever you're from. And the interesting thing is that if the whole world would grab a hold of that idea, maybe there'd be less wars, there'd be less fighting, there'd be less division, there'd be more love, there'd be more synergy. Maybe we would all be higher up in the prosperity project. I mean, there's all kinds of things. I mean, together we'll stand, divided we'll fall.
Sure.
And that policy not only happens within families, it happens among nations, it happens around the globe. And the enemy seems to want to keep us fighting.
Put a wedge between everybody, yeah.
Right. It's harder to keep everybody at peace.
100%. And that's all we really want, just some peace, right?
Exactly.
But no matter what, politics, it doesn't matter. Everyone's fighting about everything. And what's great about this show, Dad, is we have a bunch of different guests on. We have conversations. We're trying to bring back common sense. Whatever happened to bringing people together, have the conversation, agree to disagree over dinner. Just, I appreciate that's your viewpoint. That's not really how I see things. Agree to disagree, leave as friends. Whatever happened to that?
Well, I think it's still around. And I think our next guest will exhibit that.
Well, I'm excited to have our next guest on. His name is Cory Morgan. He's a columnist based in Alberta, Canada. He regularly writes for the Western Standard. Also, some of his writings pop up in Epoch Times. He has his own weekly show, Cory Morgan, with a Standard, and he was just at an Independence Town Hall in Regina. We're going to talk about that. He's written a book, The Sovereigntist Handbook, Charting the Course to Western History. Cory, welcome to the show.
Great, thank you. I appreciate coming on.
Well, appreciate having you. But this is your first time on our show. Why don't you just give us a little background about who you are, what you've done, a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I guess I've always been politically restless. I started as a young reformer way back at the start of the 90s, getting involved in campaigns, volunteering. I was always fascinated by it. And then got involved in provincial politics which was the Alberta Party back in those times, which was actually quite a conservative party. It's morphed into something else since. As an impatient, high-strung young man, I got impatient with the Alberta Party and felt, particularly when I was 29 after the election, Jean Chrétien reelected, very regionally divisive. I and myself and some others from that party broke off and formed the Alberta Independence Party. We ran in a 2001 election, and Ralph Klein handily mopped the floor with us. And though we made a lot of waves at the time, we fell apart to infighting, which is common for that kind of movement, but learned a heck of a lot. I remained involved in politics through what was the Alberta Alliance and then the Wild Rose Party. I left the oil field a few years back and ended up in independent media where I am now. And something that's really, I guess, kind of become relevant a couple of years ago, I wrote the Sovereigntist Handbook to try and at least share a lot of the experiences and give a bit more of a prescriptive path for somebody who feels that it's time to really change the system. And if they feel independence, provincial independence is the path to do so, this book kind of offers the how, or at least showed a lot of the ways not to do things, which I learned over the years. And hopefully people can find the correct ways, or at least stop repeating mistakes.
Let me ask you this, because we've talked about Alberta a lot, and I want to get into the handbook, but you were just in Regina. You were a speaker there. I want to bring in our Saskatoon buddies, our Saskatchewan buddies, our Regina people, because there's a movement going on there as well. Can you speak to that? What happened in that town hall? What's the temperature like there? What are you seeing?
Yeah, well, I wasn't sure what I was going to be in for. I hadn't been into Saskatchewan in person in a couple of years. We saw with the polling that the appetite for provincial independence is just as strong in Saskatchewan, possibly even stronger than Alberta. But you can't substitute getting into a room with what turned out to be 500 or 600 people. I wouldn't have been shocked if there was 100 people there, and I wasn't shocked to see it as full as it was. But it was packed, and the appetite for independence is their enthusiasm was fantastic. Similar to what I'm seeing in Alberta too. Now it's people know where they want to go. They're just not quite sure how to get there. And in Saskatchewan, they haven't been in the habit of spawning parties, as you put it out in Alberta, as much as we have, or movements, though they have been, the home of the CCF and others that got going. So it was a very heartening room. It was really good to see. It was a lot of people. It's something that always impresses me when I go to these, and I saw in particular there a lot of people coming up saying they'd never been involved in politics in their life, but they decided it's time they got to get off the couch and get active.
Yeah, agreed.
Right on.
I'm going to let you have a question, Alan, before I go.
Well, one of the things that's amazing is that, I think the thing that's come up with some of our speakers that we've had on here is a leader. In all your investigation or whatever, do you see some prospective leaders or leader that could lead this independence movement in Western Canada?
It's been a really big question lately. And at the moment, I don't see any particular person sort of standing out or reaching out to grab the role. I mean, a lot of people could put out wish lists for some prominent politicians or business people or so on, but they haven't expressed an interest in taking on that role. And it is something that the movement's kind of lacking right now. I'm hoping, though, I mean, as it gains steam, as these meetings go, people have to realize that, independence sentiment's always been there, but it's really only been since the last election that it's exploded. And that's only been a month. Over time, hopefully something will evolve and somebody will come up to be sort of a more centralized spokesperson for the movement.
You have this quote, and I know it's your opening line on your speeches, but I loved it. I'm going to just read it. In December of 1980, the Globe and Mail described Western separatism as primitive and confused, groping for a platform and searching for a leader. Here we are over 40 years later, and the statement is as true as ever. I love that quote that I have here. Why is that? Why can it not get legs? Why can it not get organized? Why are we, and I agree with you 100%. We're in the same boat we were 40 years ago. Nothing's changed. I don't know if nothing ever will change. Why do you think it's that way?
Well, I think there's two reasons. For one, we're actually trying to collect independence-minded people. We're trying to collect people whose whole focus is on leave me alone. And they're just by nature not very good at walking as a group. It's counterintuitive to them. So they're a difficult group to manage. The other part is, and I cover that in the book, we keep taking the partisan approach. We keep trying to spawn parties, including myself, trying to spawn another party. And parties are adversarial by nature, and they get divided and they get split and they fight with each other. And the cause gets lost. Independence is a cause all unto itself. And if a party just wraps itself around that cause, well, as we've seen, it doesn't work. Something I've been pointing out in a lot of speeches lately, the last provincial election in Alberta, there were 5 independence parties running. And if you add the vote from all 5 parties together, even though provincial polling for independent support was about 20% at the time, they polled at 0.8% with all of their combined votes all in one. They're just spinning their wheels. I mean, some well-meaning people, and they work very hard for those parties, but they're not gaining traction through that route. They have to look otherwise, and that's where it's exciting right now. We're focusing on a referendum, not on a particular party, and I think that leaves a lot more room for people to unite just around one goal, rather than dealing with all of the 100 little things you got to deal with trying to deal with things with a party.
Dad, do you have a question?
Well, yeah, the interesting thing is that, when you say people by their very nature don't want to become a member of a party, they basically want to say, just leave me alone. Let me live my life, the way I feel, I should be able to live my life. And the aspect of that is true. The problem is there is boundaries and there is borders that we have to live with. I mean, I can't just do anything I feel like. I have to consider my neighbor, myself. One of the things that's come up to me, Cory, lately is I go for about a 6K walk every morning. And I've always noticed that, there are some people that when you're meeting them on the trail, they look straight down. They don't look up to you. They don't look at you, and they don't say anything. And it's like they're pretending that I don't exist, or they're afraid I'm going to bite them, or I don't know what. But I think that what I've decided to do is everybody that comes up to me, if their head's down and everything else, I'll say good morning, or hello, or hi, or beautiful day, isn't it? Or something like that. And there's this one young Asian guy. He and I meet now each other almost the same place every morning. He's going one direction, I'm going the other. And we're actually, saying good morning to each other. So I think there's a scenario of what's more important to us. Is it policies and procedures, or is it people? And I think when you boil down to it, it really boils down, I think, to people.
Yeah, and we get a little more, philosophical. I think that's something that developed nations in general have done. We've really been trained to hand off every responsibility to the government to do just about everything. Unfortunately, we've lost our sense of community in doing that. When you used to solve problems, you went to your community association meeting, or you went to your church or temple, or went to a political meeting. Now we've got this attitude of, I guess you could say, independence-minded people. It's more, leave me alone to myself. But at the same time, they can associate with other people. I think they just want to do it on their own terms. But it's a growing problem. That's a much bigger problem. You're sort of identifying our lack of community and interaction. We've become so introverted. I mean, even as an example, we're never 2 feet from our phones. We just can't do it. I'm sure everybody walking, half of them, their heads are staring down at their phone instead of staring up and taking in nature and whoever's walking by. I don't know what'll change that necessarily. But an interesting aspect of going to these town hall meetings that I have been is people are very much enjoying when they do get to the room together in person. I think there's more gets accomplished during the social period before and after the meeting, rather than when a guy like me is standing on the stage bloviating at them. People getting together and realizing, we can be together on this.
Mm.
I think you're absolutely right. And to me, it's kind of like a socialistic or a socialism kind of scenario where we always want Big Brother or government to do it for us. And it's better if we sit down together as a group and figure it out for ourselves. Dr. Nagase, at one of the meetings that I went to a couple of years ago, I think this was a Alberta Prosperity Project meeting, he talked about the importance of becoming smaller communities. And for example, he used the example of the RCMP. In smaller communities, the police force is the RCMP, which is headquartered out of Ottawa. And he said the problem with that is the RCMP is really not responsible to the community, and the community is not responsible to the RCMP. It's kind of set off, where what we should have is maybe a police force where we know who our town sheriff is or who is in charge of the law, and we know their family and we were born and raised with them. And I think that's part of the problem, that we're so used to socialism, like even in our healthcare. If we would allow our local doctors to be in charge of our health, it would be a lot better than, now. I mean, the world wants you to let the WHO be in charge of your health.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a good example with the policing and doctors. People recognize that one of the crises right now with the socialized healthcare is people can't get a family doctor. You can still always get one at a walk-in clinic, perhaps, and get a random different doctor all the time. But the importance is the relationship you develop with your own doctor, so they know what your predispositions are, what your issues may be, and what to look out for. Likewise with local policing, they know, well, that family's got it together. If something's happening over there, that's pretty unusual and serious. Or, okay, this individual tends to be a little more of a problem. We'll deal with them a little more differently. That takes being a part of the community and knowing what's going on. And we don't do that anymore. I remember as a kid growing up with Sesame Street. They used to sing the little, who are the people in your neighborhood? And you're expected to know your postman by name and know your police officer. That was really the the atmosphere of the time or what they're telling us to do. Now it's, as you said, you walk with your head down and we don't associate with each other. It's very unhealthy and not good for us in general.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I grew up in Didsbury, the local cop was a gentleman. To be honest with you, I don't even know his last name because he was always had the nickname Rifleman. And we called him Rifleman because he drove around in his half ton with his rifle in the back. And so he was in charge of our law. And we knew him from the time we grew up till, you left the community.
Yep. Yeah, and that kind of circles back to where I'm sitting with things I feel our system in general is not good for us. I mean, there's larger social issues, but our system also keeps us from breaking away from the dependency on it, from it being, a part of our life. Government's just getting involved in way too much. And I see independence as a catalyst, not catalyze as the other fellow keeps talking about, but a catalyst to break things up and shake them up so that we can rehabilitate, rejuvenate, I think, our political system to make a more healthy society. I mean, we could talk about the specific policies of healthcare and policing and so on, but the broader concept of an active, healthy society, we need to really rebuild the system to regain that.
Cory, let me ask you this. The parties that are popping up, for this independence thing, are they, older people that like old parties that have been around for a long time? Are they brand new, spanking new ones? Are they having conversation with one another? Like, are the younger guys that are opening up parties coming and talking to you with all your experience and you got your handbook and you've been here, done that, you could give some direction? Or, is there any kind of connection or conversation happening with all these different independent parties?
I mean, loads of people have been reaching out to me lately. Absolutely. I mean, the book's certainly been selling like mad. But with the parties, I mean, some people have reached out, but they're not getting the answer they like because I'm saying that, perhaps your energies should be better dedicated to something like the Alberta Prosperity Project or a group that's focused on the independence rather than a formal political party itself. But something in general with the type of people I'm speaking with now, which is different from the past. You go to a town hall meeting, the age on average is still fairly older, but the people communicating with me a lot are younger and they're saying the same thing. They're scared and they're worried for their future. They want to be able to look forward to having a family. They want to look forward to being able to purchase a house, things that we already got to do, and they don't see a path to that right now. There's another generation coming up that's discontent. It used to be all the blue hairs at the independence meetings, and that's changing now a bit. Younger people still aren't too inclined to get out and go to meetings, but they're inclined to email and to phone, and I'm hearing from them. So the parties, not so much. The groups, absolutely. I've always done a lot of work back and forth with the Alberta Prosperity Project, being with the Standard and the Epic Times. I'm not a member of any party or group, but I'm certainly happy to speak with them and speak at their events. So it's coming together.
One of the things that always comes up to me is, which kind of surprised me, is when Alberta was talking about developing their own pension plan. And because of all the money that Alberta has and the money that we send to Ottawa and whatever, let's just keep this in our province and let's handle it on our own. And the thing that amazed me was that I ran across people that felt that we wouldn't be able to handle the pension plan in Alberta, that it would go bankrupt, that, we're kind of relying on the federal government. Yet if it wasn't for Alberta, the federal government wouldn't be able to handle anything. So I just didn't understand that. Have you found those kind of, they have more faith in the federal government of Canada than they do in their own province?
Well, there's a fear of change and a fear of the unknown and a fear of instability. When I go to the meetings, I go to the Alberta Prosperity Project meetings, things like that, speak to people. We did a tour and speaking about the pension plan. I mean, the math is there. It's clear that if we formed our plan, it's going to be fiscally better for Alberta, almost no matter how you look at it. But they don't necessarily trust the provincial government. So a little bit of that is kind of on the Smith government. I think in general, they've been doing a good job, but they've got the healthcare fiasco. They've got some infighting. They got other things. People want, a lot of what I hear them say is it's a crappy pension plan, but it's the only one I got. And I'm just terrified at the prospect of losing that, because they're people on a fixed income and they're living from bill to bill. And if something comes along and shakes that up, then they've really got nothing else to fall back on. So the government, anybody who wants to get that provincial pension plan, really has to work on the trust factor. They have to convince people it's going to be better managed than what Ottawa did. And I know to us, it would seem unimaginable that anybody could manage it worse than Ottawa. But realistically, we've seen a lot of governments at all sorts of levels make some pretty terrible decisions. So I think that comes along more to our local governance to lead by example and show that they can be responsible with our money, and people will be more inclined to do it. I mean, we've got to remember, Alberta's still running deficits. I mean, Premier Smith campaigned for a long time on being a conservative. Well, she hasn't balanced the budget yet. So until she can kind of show that steady fiscal hand, I think some people they're just not ready to make that leap yet, but I think it'll come.
You know, when you say she can't balance the budget, is that because the first thing that you do is take away the billions of dollars that you send to Ottawa?
Well, that money itself would certainly help. You know, we're getting drained every year. But we also know we were paying equalization when Ralph Klein was premier as well, and the oil prices dipped down to $9, I think, in '97, and he still managed to balance the budget because Smith is doing the one thing not doing the one thing you have to do. She won't cut spending. You've got to cut spending. There's no getting around that. If we started getting back the funds that get drained out in equalization, well, if we're still spending like drunken sailors, there's no end to how much governments can spend. So I really do think that they've got to get it together. I know she's running in 10 different directions and has a lot of challenges, but she's got to get back to that focus and saying, what are our spending priorities? What can we cut? Our government is too big, and she hasn't done that yet.
I want to get your thoughts quickly on Smith about independence. She's made comments online. We kind of know where she's at. What do you think? You think she'll come around? You think she's totally against it? Your thoughts on her?
I mean, I take her at her word for most things. I think she's not totally against it. She's certainly not throwing that out. She's saying that's not where she's at right now, but she's facilitating the movement in every way possible. I mean, in giving the mechanism for that with a referendum, because we didn't have that before. We had a fake referendum legislation, in taking the battle to Ottawa and making the demands. She's basically given us the ability, when Ottawa says, what are you going to do about it? She's given the demands saying, do all this. We want these things met, or else. The or else isn't going to be on her, but it's going to be on citizens to get a referendum going and bring that to a fore. So I think she's maintaining the right balance. I don't think it would be principled for her to promote full-out independence because she wasn't elected on that premise in the first place. She doesn't have a mandate for that.
We've got like 2 minutes.
Being involved in journalism, let me ask you one question that's a little off the topic. I thought we were headed for a mail strike, but we don't have a mail strike. What happened there? Can you tell me that?
Well, I think maybe some of the union members are realizing they don't actually have leverage anymore. They're lucky to have the jobs they do with the compensation they have. Their demands were ridiculous, and they've got to get reasonable. They got to talk about how they're going to take care of people as that corporation winds down, because it's just not sustainable in its current model. Even with journalism, we don't make a print copy of the Standard any longer. Everything's digital. It doesn't harm us when the posties go on strike, and it doesn't harm most people. So they've just got to get with the times.
Okay, we got 2 minutes left. I wanted to give it to you to talk about the book, why people should get this book, what's in this book. I'm going to get it. I'm going to read it. What can they expect when they read your book?
Thanks. Well, I called it the Sovereigntist Handbook because I visualized it as a handbook. New political involved people, or even experienced ones, where something they'll keep referencing, because the book really focuses on the how. Michael Wagner put out some magnificent books on the why independence is so essential, but a lot of people will say, okay, but what do I do next? So this book teaches everything from countering some of the common points against independence, whether it's military or the landlocked status, how to join a political movement or party and be active within it, how to even speak with friends and family without annoying them, and to keep moving the cause forward. So it's an instruction book on how to turn yourself into an effective advocate for independence.
Let me ask you this before you go. Do you think it's going to happen? Do you think it's a possibility? Do you think it's going to be another 40 years and we'll be in the exact same boat as we were now and 40 years ago? What are your thoughts?
I think it's a very real possibility. There's going to be a vote in 2026 at some point. I think that's almost assured now, but there is a whole heck of a lot to be done between now and then if the movement is really expecting to get over that into that clear majority territory. But it's closer to it, I think, than we've seen in our lifetimes. And if it doesn't happen this time and nothing changes, it will be happening soon.
Top two things quickly. What need to be done in your mind? Very first things.
Well, I mean, the things that need to be protected are personal freedoms and, fiscal responsibility. As for what needs to be done, well, people have to quit staring at the ground when they go for their walks and look up and say to themselves, what can I do about it? Not what can somebody else do about it? What can I do about it?
Cory Morgan, we're so grateful that you came on the show. We're going to have you back because this conversation is not going to go away over the next year or so. And we're going to have you back to get your input. Probably, maybe even have some other guests on with you so that we can have more discussion, so that people can hear this. People that can't make the town halls, we want to do the best that we can to make sure the news gets out so people are informed and they have an understanding of what all this is about. Thanks for being here. We really appreciate you.
Great. Thank you. Pleasure talking to you.
Well, Alan, that's an interesting conversation. Great to have other people's input, which, by the way, by the way, Cory is on the show because a viewer wrote in and said you should have Cory on the show. So there you go. If you have someone in mind that you'd like to hear from, even in Saskatchewan or wherever, we'd love to have them on to have the conversation, because that's the only way, Dad, we're going to make any difference and unite people is, like you said, on your walk, look up, say hello, and have a conversation, because I don't know what it is. Why have we become so distant? Why do we not talk to each other anymore?
Well, I think we have become a world where, the individual is not important. And yet when we quote our verse, the earth and everything in it, the world and its inhabitants belong to the Lord, that brings us together, that we are all created equally in the sight of God. And, he is the one that has a plan for us. And when we start bringing that together and we start understanding that, then I can look up and say good morning to somebody who I don't know, anything about. But I do know one thing. I know that he is created in the image of God in the same way that I was. And that's a unifying factor for us as people who live here.
If you want to help support our program, keep this kind of conversation on the air, we are viewer supported. We don't take government funds or lobbyist funds or special interest groups. It's only because of your generosity. You can go to our website, gotalktruth.com, click on donate. You can give digitally that way. Many different ways you could give digitally. If you'd like to do it through the mail, which most people do, you can make a check payable to Heritage Christian Ministries Association and send it to 246 Stewart Green, Southwest, Suite 3260, Calgary, Alberta, T3H 3C8. And if you'd like prayer, you can get it on our toll-free line, 1-800-915-0056 in Canada. All right, Dad, we're out of time. We will see you guys later.
Love you.